So let's raise one big question right at the very outset. As the war comes home with these LPG shortages, what can India really do to in some way de-escalate tensions in West Asia? That's the big question I want to pose to the former National Security Advisor and Foreign Secretary Shivshankar Menon, widely regarded as one of India's leading foreign policy voices. Appreciate, Mr. Menon, you're joining us.
Thank you for having
Foreign
me.
Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, told Parliament that India is committed to de-escalation, to dialogue, to diplomacy, to resolve the West Asia crisis. Do you believe that India has any role at all to play, given the kind of power games going on between Iran and Israel and America?
Well, there's two big limitations on what we can or could do. One is, of course, the fact that this is a war initiated by the US and Israel, who initiated the attack. So unless we can persuade them, that, frankly, I'm not sure how much influence we have at this moment, because we're now talking the psychology of individual leaders who seem committed to this war and to the attack on Iran. The other limiting factor, of course, is that you can only play some kind of mediatory role if both sides accept your bona fides, regard you as relatively neutral, and if both sides want a ceasefire. Now, today, it seems to me that of the three parties, main parties involved, the USA maybe could be satisfied with a quick ending, but we have no idea, frankly, because they keep shifting the goalposts. We've heard different explanations for why they're doing this from the president. Israel and Iran seem to want a much longer conflict because to serve their ends. In Iran's case, to be able to use her advantages, which is to create pain for US allies in the Gulf, drive up oil prices, and generally, therefore, create reverse leverage. And in Israel's case, to remove Iran as a real geopolitical actor. So I think there are limits on what we can do. Just advocating peace, motherhood, apple pie, diplomacy, frankly, to my mind, it sounds good, but I'm not sure how effective it can be.
The reason I'm asking you is, if you look over the last 10 days, Mr. Menon, we stayed silent for at least 5 days after the assassination of Ali Khamenei. We did not directly question the US for the sinking of a ship in the Indian Ocean. And by and large, there's a sense that we've been unwilling, at least publicly, to question Donald Trump's act of aggression, or Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu's act of aggression. Do you believe that our silence has been strategic, or should we have spoken out in some form early on?
I think we've chosen silence actually on all the big issues over the last 5 years. Whether it was our refusal to call a Russian invasion of Ukraine an invasion, whether it was on the slaughter in Gaza, where we abstained on resolutions in the UN. This has been a consistent pattern of behavior. And I think ultimately it diminishes the value of your voice. People stop listening to you if you're silent because they're used to not listening to you. The world goes on about its business. I do believe that, frankly, when a head of a state you recognize in your neighborhood is assassinated illegally, for us to stay silent, not to condemn the act, not even to condole, and 5 days later to send the foreign secretary rather than the prime minister or the foreign minister, I find that inexplicable, quite frankly. But if you choose to step aside, stay silent, then you can't then expect to have a role.
But then this is seen as strategic silence. When I speak to people in government, they say, look, this is a fast developing situation. It's very fluid. Therefore, we chose silence was part of deliberate statecraft. How do you respond that India in those early days in the Gulf War staying silent? Now suddenly, as I said, the chickens have come home because LPG prices are being affected. There is a sense that the war is no longer restricted to the theater of war, but its impact is being felt even here in India. Can silence be viewed as strategic or statecraft?
I don't see this as strategy. When you have direct interests involved, where it's going to affect you immediately. I mean, the rise in oil prices affects you immediately. The absence of fertilizer supplies affects you immediately. You've seen that LPG supplies are being cut across the country. I mean, this has happened immediately. And how is silence strategic in this situation? I find this an impossible argument. By the way, no previous government of India, not even Charan Singh's government, a temporary government, was silent when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. He stood up and said what he thought about it. For me, this is really inexplicable. This is India. And we have our interests, and we should speak for ourselves. It's not strategic to keep your mouth shut, and especially when it creates the impression that you are choosing implicitly the side of the aggressors.
You use the word that the aggression itself is illegal. Now, if we, for example, had spoken out, condemned the aggression, called it illegal, condoled at the assassination of Ali Khamenei, maybe the fear in government was that it would attract a backlash from Donald Trump, someone who simply doesn't conform to the rules of normal political behavior. And we didn't want to get on his wrong side. The Prime Minister had just gone to Israel, met Benjamin Netanyahu. Do you believe, therefore, that there is a sense that we don't want to be on the wrong side, in a way, of Netanyahu and Donald Trump at this moment?
I'm not sure what the wrong side is. When the Deputy Secretary of State stands up in the Raisina dialogue and tells you, we're not going to let you rise, we won't let you do what China did to us. When, as you said, a ship that was participating in your exercises gets torpedoed close to your coast, when you are told by the US administration that we allow you to import, notice the word, to import oil which has already been loaded before March 5th. When Mr. Trump claims that he has prevented a nuclear war in the subcontinent, I think 48 times maybe at last count. I mean, I'm not sure which side you are on today and why you think you are on the right side. I don't see great US consideration for your point of view or even for your sentiments in the last few months, starting with the brutality in and the way in which Indians were deported from the US, illegal perhaps, but certainly they were treated brutally, and H-1B visas, and the list is very long. So I'm not sure what equities we are protecting here.
Are you saying we should have therefore called out Donald Trump for what you call an illegal war of aggression on Iran, called out Benjamin Netanyahu, who really seems to be the one driving the war in a way? Would that have given us greater moral stature to then now play a bigger role?
I think I forget about moral stature, but certainly I think the world would treat you with more respect if over the last 5 years you had not kept your mouth shut on every important issue. If this is a strategy, it's a strategy that has failed. But there's a sense that the last thing you...
Yes. Because there is a sense that the last thing you want to do is get into a war of words with someone like Donald Trump. That with Donald Trump, you just keep away the noise that he makes on a daily basis, because that can only further complicate matters. You don't agree with that?
What I'm saying is very simple. If you have nothing to say, don't say anything. But surely India has something to say. You have a view on these issues, express your view. You don't have to get into a war of words. You're not talking to Trump only. You're talking to the world, and you're saying what you think. That's it. Mm-hmm. I mean, Trump doesn't seem to bother about all this, about not getting into a war of words, nor does anybody else. Every other member of the BRICS has spoken. Mm-hmm. Most developing countries have spoken and said what they think.
Mm-hmm. But now the government says, at least listening to Dr. Jaishankar in Parliament, he spoke about the need to respect territorial sovereignty. He spoke about the need to push for peace at the earliest, de-escalation. Do you believe these are all fine words that mean very little because it's too little, too late? that therefore we simply have now no leverage? Will the Iranians in particular trust us? Because the foreign minister has been in conversation with the Iranian foreign minister over the last couple of days as well. Do you believe Iran will see us also as an honest player in this conflict?
I'm not privy to the conversations or what happened or what they said, what they did. I can only say that from my point of view, I am not interested in statements. And frankly, we have had contradictory, so many statements being made, so many leaks, so much spin surrounding this war, that for me, the only thing that matters is actions and outcomes. So I will judge each of the powers, whether it's India, whether it's Iran, whether it's the US, Israel, by what they do, rather than by what they say. Secondly, it seems to me that the important thing at the end of it is the outcomes that you arrive at. And today there's no sign of any of these outcomes. Territorial integrity, I mean, you're assassinating leaders. You're breaching their territorial integrity and sovereignty every day and threatening to do more of it. So frankly, I will wait until there's some clarity on outcomes before I pass judgment on all this.
So what do you think India should do now? Now we are 11 days into this war. What is it that India can do? Should it now at least speak out and say, Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, this is an illegal war of aggression against a sovereign country. There are other ways to resolve this. Do you believe that's the way forward, to speak up loudly if we claim to be particularly a leader of the global South?
You know, the moment for the government to speak is over, because I think events have moved on. I hope the government decides to speak out in the future and allows a real debate on these issues, rather than just a unilateral statement in Parliament, because it would convey to the world, including Iran and to the Americans, the breadth of sentiment in this country, which is important. They should know that there are various opinions in India on this. But more important than that, I think we have immediate problems to deal with. Do the practical. Find alternative sources of supply of LNG, for instance. Deal with the energy security problem. Don't assume that the US is going to stop this tomorrow and that everything is going to go back to normal. There's no going back in politics. Politics is a process. And so let's see where we can, we have enough practical things to do, and go out and share it with the people. Tell the people of India where we are, what's happening, what we're doing about it. I think that will reassure people considerably. And I think that's our primary job as a country right now. The long term, whether the world becomes more
so you're saying,
yeah, I'm saying that there is enough to.
So you're saying there should be a full parliament. You're saying there should be a full parliament. You're saying there should be a full parliament debate on this. Parliament must debate the West Asia crisis.
There are multiple ways of expressing yourself. Parliament debates are one way, which are actually a very good way. But there are a whole host of ways. People can express their opinions. You can tell people that, follow your conscience, express yourself in articles, go out and give interviews, talk to people. And I think we need a proper discussion. This is an important enough issue that affects our future in every which way. This is our neighborhood and what's happening to it. So it's not something that I think we can just ignore and hide our heads in the sand.
Right. So if I may just for a moment, you see, politicians engage in what I call is whataboutery. A lot of BJP politicians will tell you, what did the Congress do when they were in power? You were also serving in the Manmohan Singh government. Did the government take a firm stand after 26/11? Were we under US pressure not to attack Pakistan? Did we take a stand when Muammar Gaddafi was taken out by the NATO forces? Did we take a stand when America took out a Saddam Hussein? They say it's very well to now speak out when the BJP is observing silent. But what was India's stand in that period between 2004 and 14?
Actually, we made our views known on each of the issues that you've mentioned. sometimes privately, sometimes publicly, sometimes through interviews, sometimes through articles, in various ways. There were debates on all these issues in Parliament. We answered Parliament questions, start questions on some of these. So, and frankly, whataboutery is no answer. You know, so to misrepresent what happened in the past, I mean, this is a misrepresentation to say that, oh, India did
Yes, go
nothing.
ahead.
Yeah, this is a misrepresentation. There was a limit to what we could do because there are limits to our powers. I mean, we can't stop the Americans from attacking Iran, even today. But certainly we let our views be known and we maintained credibility with all sides involved.
What according to you, Mr. Menon, then, is the best case scenario and the worst case scenario from your perspective? As you see, give us the bigger picture as you're watching it unfold at the moment. Do you fear that things will get worse before they get better? And what are the immediate repercussions on India in particular?
Well, the best case, of course, from our point of view, is that fear of $5 a gallon gas at the pump in the US before the midterms makes the US stop very soon. Hormuz reopens, and all those tankers which are stuck on one side or the other manage to get moving, and at least they can. Now, the trouble is it will take time to get the LNG trains working again. But hopefully, we can come back to some semblance of normalcy relative. That's the best case. Is it likely? It all depends on, as far as I can see, on the very small little decision-making circles in the US, because this is something that the US and Israel have started. If the US decides to stop, I'm not sure how long Israel can go on. The Iranians might like to carry it on. But, because ultimately their fear is that if it stops, they'll be back where they were last June with the prospect of another attack whenever it suits their opponents. But that does it so more likely than an early stop and all the things I mentioned in the best case, I think is a petering out of it over time. But whether it'll happen in 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's very hard to say, because you've had completely contradictory explanations for why they're doing this from the US. The US is clearly, I mean, they've talked of regime change, they've talked of a nuclear program which was supposed to have been obliterated, according to the president last June. Now we're told in 2 weeks Iran was going to have a bomb. The missile program, Iran's behavior in the neighborhood, I mean, different explanations. So frankly, that becomes very hard to predict.
What do you see as the biggest fear from an Indian perspective? What is it about this war that we should really be worried about now?
I hope to God that our strategic oil reserve and that we build in resilience into our supply arrangements for gas, for fertilizer, and that we take those kinds of lessons from this war, where even such a short conflict, even if it ends tomorrow, where we have all our pain points, we must make sure that we eliminate those for the future.
Well, would you have advised the Prime Minister to go to Israel on the eve of this war? Do you believe that was the right decision, or hindsight is 2020 and now today it may appear that perhaps that was the wrong time? Do you believe there is a right and wrong time for such diplomatic visits?
I don't know actually why the visit took place. I mean, I'm still wondering about, quite apart from the timing, I wasn't sure what occasioned the visit. And I must say the look is not good.
It was to strengthen defense cooperation with Israel. It was to strengthen defense cooperation with Israel, sir. I mean, those were many of the deals signed.
But all that could have been done without a prime ministerial visit. And most of our defense cooperation with Israel is solid, has been for some time. And that doesn't require prime ministerial intervention. So I'm still not sure why the visit took place. And then I presume they had some reason to do it when they did. But nobody has, frankly, I'm not familiar with that. But for me, the look wasn't good, as you said, and especially with hindsight.
Sir, you know, the fact is we have about 10 million citizens who live across the Gulf. We have a number of Indian students in Iran. We've built strong relationships with the United Arab Emirates in particular. We've built decent relationship with Saudi Arabia, strong relations now with Israel. And we've had an enduring relationship with Iran, even if we've not agreed with them on every issue, for example, Iran's views on Kashmir. But broadly, do you believe it's possible to be neutral at all in this hyper-polarized Trump world with so many actors being influenced?
It's not a question of being neutral. You've never been neutral on Middle Eastern issues. You've been right, and you've expressed your interest. And that despite, and because of that, because they knew what you were doing, you have maintained decent relationships from the 50s with all the major actors in the Middle East, all the regional powers. Whether it was Egypt, whether it was Saudi Arabia, you had the King of Saudi Arabia coming here in 1956. Whether it was Iran, whether it was Turkey, to a lesser extent perhaps, whether it was Israel. You worked with Israel right through. In 74, you faced an oil boycott from Saudi because of your relations with Israel. Long before you had an embassy, but you were still dealing with them. So it was possible because they respected the fact that you had your interests and your views, and you expressed them diplomatically in ways which they understood. And I think it's possible, but that doesn't mean you have to be neutral.
Mr. Shivshankar Menon, you've given us an overview of where you believe the war could be heading, but more importantly, you've told us what India's stand should be. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Razib. Thank you very much. All the best.